One of the things I was thinking about recently, that I noticed actually, I was thinking about it because I had kind of observed that something had shifted. For me personally, it's something I hear a lot of people talk about, so I'm sharing it because I think it could be helpful. But I was thinking about those cringy moments. Do you know what I mean? So sometimes it's happening in real time. You do something, you say something usually it's in a social situation, but it's usually with somebody else, and you cringe at what just happened, what you said, what you did, you feel weird about it. But really, mostly, I think it happens when we are remembering something, right? I've talked to people for years about how easy it is to recall all the stupid things I said, all the stupid things I did. I could probably rattle off a list for you in no time at all. And it would take more time to sit and think about, all the things I was proud of or all the things I did really well. I might be better at that now, maybe after some practice than I was years ago, but the negative stuff always seems to be right in the forefront, easier to access. It's like we're armed with this arsenal all the time of ammo against ourselves for everything we've done wrong, all the proof, right, of why we're not good enough, of why we're not smart enough, of, you name it. We can fill in the blank with anything, right? So I was thinking about more of those cringy moments when, like, you remember a moment, something brings it back. You could just be thinking about things or something triggers the memory, and you just cringe at even the thought of what you said, what you did, how people looked at you when it happened. Whether we interpreted that all correctly is like secondary. It's almost pointless to consider because the truth is a lot of the times we do misinterpret that, but I'm sure sometimes we don't. And it doesn't really matter so much what the other person was actually thinking. It's what we thought they were thinking and what we then thought or reflected in that about ourselves. So it's like, I don't know about you all, but I cringe. Like when I'm watching a movie and I see someone doing some of those things that I know I've been socially awkward, but awkward in all kinds of situations or said the wrong thing to the wrong person at the wrong time. And I feel like I tense up and I almost can't even watch the person, the actor, right? It's not even a real person or a real situation, but you're watching it play out and it feels so real and you know exactly what it feels like and you do that whole thing. Like, you know, face, body, everything gets tense. And we do that to ourselves, I think, uh, fairly often, I would say, whether it's consciously, um, happening in our awareness or it's just kind of in the background. I think it's happening. So, one thing is it's good to bring that forward. And the reason I'm saying all of this is because I think it's very relatable for people. And what I think would be helpful is what I have observed recently is this transformation. I don't even know what to call it quite yet. Um, that the more I have worked really hard and it has been some effort at times to see that version of me, even if it was last week, but a lot of it's past events 10 years ago, 35 years ago, like whatever it is. If I can see that as a previous version of me, mostly as a child, right? Or a young person, or even a young adult, like what do we know at, you know, these young early 20 ages really about life? We're just stepping into adulthood. It's the first time we've done any of this stuff. And there's so many things we don't know yet. And so, that's not to say anything's wrong with being 22 or 21 or 23, but to hold judgment of ourselves, to cringe at ourselves because of something we did due to a lack of life experience, a lack of perspective, or anxiety or fear or whatever, it is pretty unfair. So, because of the work I do and what I know is really important for all of us to do with ourselves, and what I help people learn how to do is seeing the version of yourself for what it is as a young person, as not really knowing any different at the time, doing the best we could at the time, whatever it is. adolescence, teen, whatever that happens to be. Um, and I have noticed, I think on average, I could say I've had, several cringy moments a week, for as long as I can remember until recently. And for a while now, I've been really consistently, and I wasn't always consistent with that. I knew how to do this. I helped other people do it, but it wasn't necessarily that easy to apply, to myself. And I think that your level of awareness around this incrementally increases too. But the more I have been consistent about recognizing that version as a child or a young person, or just not really knowing any different, or it just fit the circumstance at the time because, I was overwhelmed. I was filled with anxiety, or something else was going on in life. And like I couldn't really like mentally attend to the situation in the way I would want to, whatever it was, that I could be understanding of it is the point, as opposed to judgmental of it. And that I could acknowledge the fact that in most of these scenarios, I was a young person. And so, how is that fair? I would never look at or treat a child in this judgmental view. So, why am I doing it to myself? And that took some time to not be able to, or to not be holding that against myself, and be able to soften around that and bring in that understanding. I'm a extremely understanding and compassionate person, but it's always funny how different it is when you're trying to apply that to yourself, and how much more challenging that can be. So, because I noticed this transition so viscerally and so significantly, I really thought it was helpful to share it. It does make a difference. The more you do that, it didn't happen right away. It didn't happen the first time, or even probably the 16th time. But more and more, anytime that feeling, that cringy feeling would come up, or I'd be like, oh my God, what did I say? What did I do? Like, that was so dumb. All the things I would say to myself, I started correcting that language, because I would never turn around and say to a kid, oh, you're so dumb. What's wrong with you? But I'm saying it here, I'm saying it to me. So I started to shift the language that I used, the approach that I took, and I really tried to get a good kind of sense or visualization for a young person, for if this person was standing in front of me, how am I going to look at them and how am I going to see them? And it's just never going to be with judgment. Um, so if you want to hear more about that, let me know. I would love to share more about it. I'm probably going to write something about it. There'll be a blog out, I imagine, in the next week or two, as I can sit down and write that out. I think it's an important one, because what that has relieved in my system is, I don't even know if I have quite conceptualized how different it is. I just know how significantly different, lighter, freer, more content I feel. It's like a peace that has come from this. I like to practice what I preach. So this is stuff I help people do all the time. I know how impactful it can be. We have to take our own medicine, right? So um, I'm doing it and it's working. And I want everybody to know that this does work. And there's a lot to support that. So if you want more, we could do a class on it. I could do a virtual class on it if you're not close by. We could do an in-person class. I can do both. I'll certainly do some written material. Um, Share it, from your perspective, if you've been dealing with this, whatever you want, however we can come together and help each other, because the more we're beating ourselves up in here in any way, the harder it is to move forward, and the harder it is to bring in the things that we want, because we're not aligning with where we need to be to allow that free flowing and that co-creating, to design the life that we want. So I hope that's helpful. I hope everyone has a great day, a great week, and I hope to talk to you soon. Bye.